calling the meeting to order. Acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation. Tla-o-qui-aht. Notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. Notice to virtual attendees to sign up for public comment and question period using the Q&A function to Zoom. To register, participants are required to enter their full name, residential address, and the agenda item they wish to speak to. Through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I move that pursuant to section 15 of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedure Bylaw number 1229/2016 is amended. The April 9th, 2024 regular meeting be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at Municipal Hall 380 Campbell Street in Tofino, BC. Seeing no objections, that motion carried. Also through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I move that the April 9th, 2024 regular council agenda be adopted. No objections, that motion is carried. We have a substantial consent agenda. Also, through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I move that items 4.1 to 4.8 of the consent agenda on the regular council meeting held April 9th, 2024 be approved and received. Seeing no objection, and the motion is carried. Mr. Shortall, do we have anybody signed up for public comment on agenda items?
Thanks, Mayor Lott. We have nobody signed up currently. We do have some members in the viewing gallery and also online via Zoom. So if you'd like to make a comment to council, you can do so now. You state your name, your address, and the agenda item you're speaking to. So calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times, and no comments at this point, Mayor Lott.
Super. We'll move on to the mayor's report. It was just a wonderful honor to be at the Tourism Tofino Chamber of Commerce annual agenda, attended by Minister Alana Popham, Arts, Culture, Tourism, Sport, and also our own MLA and Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation, Josie Osborne. It was wonderful, and it was also attended by Destination BC and many other fantastic folks. It was a big room full of people, and we're so thankful to be there. And also we were welcomed, and the meetings were started by Tla-o-qui-aht and representatives from the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, Terry Dorward, and more. So we look forward to some presentations from both Tourism Tofino and Chamber of Commerce coming up. Great stuff. Also, it was a wonderful opportunity today to be able to, with Councillor Steer and many other reps from the region, to do a ribbon cutting for our own West Coast Transit Service. Fantastic. So I'm going to leave it for that. I'm going to leave it for Councillor Steer to tell us all about that wonderful new service on the coast. And just a little personal comment. Hearts go out to Marsh Mac, Thomas Paul, and their son Matthew, who's recovering from an accident. So we're thinking about friends in a housing. No delegations, correspondence. 9.1. We have a letter from the Minister of Forests regarding an invitation to engage on proposed conservancies in Tla-o-qui-aht Sound. So that goes out to all people around, especially for residents of the region. I got to fill one out today. It was great. It's very easy. So I encourage everyone, staff, council, members of the public, anybody interested in Tla-o-qui-aht Sound and that very new and looks great conservancy proposal. Any comments from council on that? Nope, seeing none, moving on. Alberta Tla-o-qui-aht Regional District regarding food security initiative. And I'll look to council for comments on that. And I do have a draft resolution. Council, anybody? Tell you what I'll do is I'll just read it. I'm going to turn my computer this way, though. I noticed it was. Can you show me how to do it? Flip? Where is it? Flip. Oh, there we go. There we go. So why don't I just read it out, and then that'll give us give everybody an idea of what where our draft proposal is coming from. Dear Mayor, Law and Council, the Alberni Claycoat Regional District ACRD has been awarded a grant to explore emergency planning and preparedness needs for a food security perspective, from a food security perspective by the Investment Agricultural Foundation. As emergency planning benefits all communities in our region, the ACRD would like to invite the District of Tofino to collaborate with them and the City of Port Alberni on this fully funded project, which will involve working with all collaborators to identify specific gaps in food security and emergency management for both short-term emergency events and long-term capacity building. First Nations food sovereignty, supply chain stability, food skills training, and aquaculture are some of the topics that will be explored. The province has indicated the gaps identified through this study will have opportunities to apply for support through Stream 2 of the fund to address those identified gaps. Should you wish to partner in this initiative, a written reply is requested by April 19th, 2024, in order to give the ACRD time to add an addendum to our RFP informing proponents of how many collaborating groups they can expect to be engaged with. It's great. It's a fantastic opportunity, fully funded, and it's going to benefit our region. So I think that look at the council thumbs up on supporting. So I do have a draft resolution here from the chair that staff be authorized to participate and collaborate in the ACRD Food Security Emergency Planning Project. Second by Councillor Steer. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. All right. We also have finally correspondence 9.3, Eileen Floody regarding traffic suggestions for Tofino. Comments from council.
Thank you. I read Ms. Floody's letter and definitely hear a lot of the concerns. One of the things I had a question about, if I could, for the mention of industrial way, would that fall under the Ministry of Transportation, given that's the highway, or would it be the district?
That's an excellent question. And for that, I think this particular spot on the highway has been dealt with by our director. So.
Through the chair, yes, it is Ministry of Highways jurisdiction. We have worked with the ministry on the installation of a number of crosswalks on Highway 4, but the ministry has been pretty clear that that crossing is not or that intersection is not a candidate for a crosswalk due to the challenging sightlines from the northbound or southbound direction.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments on this this letter from council? Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, we're moving on to presentations and reports. 10.1, we have an invited presentation from Tourism Tofino regarding the annual general meeting and annual operations. Mr. Purcell, welcome.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for having us today. And yeah, the purpose of the presentation here is just really to recap what Tourism Tofino got up to in 2023. I do apologize for those of you who are at the AGM. This is going to hit on a lot of the same notes that you saw me talk about there, but I'll try to make it somewhat different and interesting. But that's where we're going today. So we can just jump right into it. I did want to start off by just acknowledging our 2023-2024 Board of Directors, who you can see on the screen there, chaired by Sabrina Donovan. And then, of course, we had an election and we have a new board now, which I'll show you later at the end. I just wanted to quickly look at a couple of very high-level visitation indicators for 2023, but also just looking back through the pandemic. And the theme of these graphs is it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride for the businesses and the industry in Tofino. And 2022 still stands as our banner year in terms of hotel revenue and therefore MRDT in this community. But if you drill down into average occupancy for hotels, we can see that again, that 2023 will really come close to 2022. And this is occupancy averaged across the entire year. So obviously it's a lot busier in summer and a lot quieter in winter, but this is what it's averaged out to be. And obviously Highway 4 and some of the challenges associated with that had a really big impact on visitation last summer. You can see the average daily rate charged by the main hotels in Tofino stayed relatively static year over year. And I think that probably speaks to, like I said at the AGM, we may have hit rate tolerance, frankly, with visitors at certain times of the year, particularly outside of summer. And in fact, we saw rates actually trailing off in November and December of last year. So So I think we've hit a bit of a threshold for rates here in Tofino. And then if you break it down by month, that's your average hotel occupancy there. The speaker box is right over the legend, but I think from memory, well, the blue line is obviously 2023. You can see the impact of the highway foreclosure in June. I think that's a pretty big giveaway there. But really, I guess the point of bringing this up is that, you know, it was a challenging year last year. We didn't even crack 90% occupancy of hotels in August. So, you know, it was a challenging year. And you can see from just the shape of that graph that we still are very much struggling with a seasonality problem in terms of tourism here in Tofino. And then if we look at average rates, this is just breaking down the rates more by month. You get a sense of what rates look like on average across the calendar year. And as I was talking about, while businesses, hotels are able to get a little bit more revenue out of July and August, really it was pretty flat year on year, with it trailing up there a little bit at the end of last year. So that's just really quickly some high level visitation indicators. I wanted to jump into our financials, and I'll try to keep this relatively short and sweet, but we do have a full audit done every single year. This was done by Grant Thornton this year. And just picking out a few little things from the statement of operations, you can see that we ran a very balanced operating budget in 2023. We spent more or less everything that we received. There was a small surplus of 62,000. I will point out for council that the MRDT line, the revenue there, does not include the $400,000 that was withheld by the District of Tofino for debt servicing for the wastewater treatment plant. There were definitely increases in spending over the previous years, mainly in advertising, promotions and programs, and that was due to board-approved recovery campaigns and some extra marketing that went on to get back on our feet after the highway foreclosure. And then if we move to the statement of financial position on page 5, where this is where we ended with assets and liabilities, you'll see on the assets side that we had about $500,000 invested in GICs to realize some interest revenue from the surplus from 2022. And then on the liabilities side, you'll notice that the loan to build the Tofino Visitor Center was completely paid off in January of 2023 with no remaining loan interest payments left, which is a huge milestone for Tourism Tofino and I would say for the community at large. So overall, Tourism Tofino is in a very healthy position. One thing I did mention at the AGM that I'll mention here is there has been a note on our financials, on our audits for the last 2 years about an open investigation by the District of Tofino and the province into the possibility that OAP and MRDT was mixed in together. That investigation was finally closed last year, and that note has been removed from our financials. So there was a note on there saying that we may owe some MRDT back to the district, but now that that investigation is concluded, that note is no longer on our financials. And finally, while I'm talking about all things money, I did want to publicly acknowledge, as I did at the AGM, the property tax exemption that the District of Tofino gives to the visitor center and to Tourism Tofino, which helps us to invest more money in things that we do at Tourism Tofino. So jumping into some operational highlights, I'm going to quickly go through our sort of main 3 service delivery areas, which is marketing, visitor services, and destination stewardship. So starting with marketing, and you can see the seasonality challenge that Tofino still has from the graphs I had up earlier. So continuing to market Tofino outside of summer to address those seasonality challenges continues to be a huge priority for us. And we have a range of channels and programs to do this, of course. And I've just got a few of the highlights here. We did 3 successful paid digital campaigns, one for spring, one for fall, and one for winter. So again, we do not advertise summer anymore. All of our paid digital advertising activity in 2023 generated over 80 million impressions online, which was significantly up from what we did in 2022. And as I'd mentioned earlier, we did do some special recovery campaigns. So the Highway is Open campaign in June 2023, which we partnered with Tourism Equal 4BI and Destination BC to try and recapture some of that visitation. And we did do an additional spend on the fall campaign as well. A couple of internal things, that there was a new role added to Tourism Tofino, content coordinator, which is to build some capacity in the critical areas of digital content and social media, which, as I'm sure you can appreciate, is changing all of the time, especially with AI now. The new Tourism Tofino website project, which I've talked a lot about, was successfully tendered last year. We received 82 proposals for that project, which was a nightmare internally for us to deal with, but we're really, really happy with the result, and we're really excited to launch our new website next month in May of 2024 with VentureWeb. We supported the marketing of 15 local festivals and events outside of the peak summer season, which was up from 2022, and this included Tla-o-qui-aht, which the mayor spoke about at the top. We continue to play with travel media. Tourism Tofino had a really a big placement in Air Canada's En Route magazine last year, as an example. And with our partners at the Chamber and the District of Tofino, we launched and promoted Tofino Winter Nights and the Hot Cocoa Trail to try to have some animation and drive some activity in our quietest month of December. So that was a really quick flyby over marketing. There's a whole lot of other things that went on, but moving on to visitor services, which is obviously a hugely important part of our organization. And I will give a huge shout out to our visitor services team, who worked exceptionally hard in 2023. Not only just with the usual visitor inquiries, but also answering a huge volume of inquiries about highway foreclosures and how folks were supposed to get here and what was going on. So as I pointed out before, interacting with visitors face-to-face is hugely important. It not only gives us the opportunity to influence how they spend their time and money when they're here in destination, but also allows us the opportunity to relay responsible visitor messaging. That graph right there just shows the number of visitors that we served in person by Tourism Tofino staff over the years. And you can see it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. And the light blue part at the top are visitors that we served outside of the visitor center. So here downtown during the summer, and also when we do our beach cleanups, the washed up Wednesdays as well. We had, when we built the Tofino Visitor Center, the intention was to have a lot of activation and workshops and programming that went on in there. So we're really proud that we had 7 Indigenous-led workshops in the Visitor Center in 2023, and as well as hosting the Legacy of Hope exhibit, which was put on by CBT. We added inclusive washroom signage to the Visitor Center as part of our efforts to create an inclusive destination. We continue to be an ocean-friendly business at the Visitor Center, certified by Surfrider, and we are now pursuing our certification with the Wild Safe BC pledge. So we have ordered some new bins and things like that to get that certification as well. We also installed a new bike repair station. People might have missed that along the multi-use path, and an EV charging station in the parking area as well. And then finally, the last service delivery area is destination stewardship, which we talk about a lot now and has become a major focus for our organization as we seek to try to make tourism a force for good for our community. And this means managing the impacts of tourism on the environment and First Nations and on residents as we move towards a regenerative tourism model that results in a net benefit for everybody in this special part of the world. Tourism Tofino isn't just blindly doing this. We're guided by things like the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We're guided by the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which is now the law of the land with DRIPR. And as I pointed out at the AGM, and I talk about a lot, I think the tourism industry, compared to other industries in BC, has a long way to go to live up to our obligation under DRIPR. And we're pretty committed to doing that at Tourism Tofino. So jumping into some of the work in that area, obviously we created a new role to give us capacity in all things destination management and regenerative tourism. So Jody stepped into that role in, I think it was March or April of last year. Obviously we supported our community in amplifying emergency messaging, particularly around the serious water conservation measures that came into effect last summer. And both of our teams are already working quite a lot on what that looks like in terms of getting more consistent and clearer messaging to visitors for the summer of 2024 and moving on. We continue to be a proud Travel Park ally. We donated $26,000 to Travel Park Allies, which was 1% of 2022's MRDT. We also signed a social media and content sharing agreement with Tribal Park so that we can start to bring their social media to life and exchange content. And we did the first step of what we see as the future of responsible visitor messaging in Tofino, which is Tla-o-qui-aht's ESOC pledge, which they developed. So we did our first foray into that by changing our welcome brochure to feature the ESOC pledge inside it, and that's racked all over town and on BC ferries. Council may be interested to know that we gave out our first ever Tourism Tofino scholarships in 2023, totaling $20,000 that were awarded to 3 graduating students of USS, which was at the recommendation of their scholarship committee. And we are actively looking at how to expand that program, for example, into a house it. We continue to do successful workforce attraction campaigns to address labor shortages. We've done some really cool collaborations with coastal queers. There's actually a shifting frameworks workshop happening this Thursday for those that are interested at the visitor center. Again, continuing our efforts in the space of DEIA. There's a lot of foundational work going on to update all of our market research. So a lot of our research is quite dated and is from the beginning of, from before the pandemic. So we are busy working on all of that, and we'll have some stuff to share later this year. And happy to say that over 2,100 pieces of debris were collected by visitors as part of the Washed Up Wednesdays effort on the beaches last summer as well. So that's pretty much it from me. I just wanted to show you the new board. So we have 3 new or returning board members, which are on the right there, and continue to look forward to working with them and rolling up our sleeves as we get into this year. And I'll give a final plug for our community tourism newsletter. I think it's not something that's well understood, but every 2 weeks we do put out a newsletter for, and it's not just for member businesses, it's for residents, for anybody in the community to sort of keep up to speed on what's going on with all things Tofino, tourism, I should say, in Tofino. But that is it for me. I'm happy to take any comments or questions, but thank you so much for your time.
Super, thanks, Mr. Purcell. Comments, questions from council? Councillor Steer.
Just a quick comment. I was fortunate enough to be at the AGM, and it was a great showing, the number of folks there and the representation. I really do want to point out the direction of Tourism Tofino in terms of the destination stewardship manager as an example of the commitment to communities and to the region. And I really want to highlight that and the importance of that in terms of the direction that I see, and very supportive in the work that Jody's doing, of course. And then, of course, a quick shout out for the scholarship program. My son's graduating, the youngest is graduating this year. And and it's wonderful. Last year, those scholarships, I know some of the recipients, and those are greatly appreciated and understood that commitment once again to the community. So thank you for the presentation again, and good luck in 2024 here.
Thank you so much.
Comments from council? You know, I have just a quick comment. You know, I just see Tourism Tofino as being transformed and in turn transformative. So I just really appreciate all your work and appreciate what Tourism Tofino is doing. Very, very supportive, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Next, we have an invited presentation from Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce. Come on up, Sackett.
It's me. Hello. Thanks so much for having me. So yeah, Samantha Hackett. I'm the new executive director for the Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce. And so this is our 2023 Fee for Service annual report. That's a presentation that we do every year. This, of course, is not, well, I was executive director. I have only been in this role for 4 weeks, but being on the other side of it as a business, I definitely know what the chamber has been doing in the community, and was able to pull together all the information. So hopefully I've outlined it all as we go through. Definitely if you have any questions or if there's any further clarification details that you'd like, even looking at for next year, if there's any changes, please let me know. So Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce, I've been in 4 weeks of just learning everything from the chamber world. And one of the interesting things that I think we all know is just how long-standing the organization is. But it was 1929, so we're going to be coming up soon on the 100 years of the Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce as an organization. So it's the longest running and largest business organization in the area, with well over 300 members. And the 300 members represent a wide cross-section of local and area businesses. for those of you that may or may not be familiar. The fee for service agreement, though, is very specific. It's just one aspect of what the chamber does. In that fee for service agreement with the District of Tofino, we have 4 areas that we focus on that are outlined in that. So the 4 are business support, business promotion and retention, the community economic profile, business roundtables, and the especially without having an economic development aspect of the District of Tofino, it seems like from what I've read and known of it over the years, that's definitely where the focus is. I know that that's been a conversation of what that looks like going forward, but at least this is sort of the last year of that 5-year agreement that we're talking about specifically for today. So just to go over those 4 areas. The business support area is about providing general business support services to the business community at large. There's 3 specific things that are outlined in that business support, which is responding to general business inquiries, providing access to relevant print and electronic resources, and providing referrals to appropriate District of Tofino staff, which is also, there's many other organizations that we're referring information to. We of course do a lot more than that, as I mentioned. And I think what's really unique about our local Tofino Chamber of Commerce compared to the chamber network throughout BC is just our ability to really respond quickly when circumstances change unexpectedly, as we have seen a lot recently over this 5-year agreement: pandemics, water, infrastructure, highways, lots of things. And so we're able to share best practices and promote our unity in these challenging times as a community and an organization. We're a very visible chamber, which is unique. So, you know, especially for those that aren't familiar with chambers and other communities, I think that's something that we're not really don't realize how visible and well respected our local chamber of commerce is. We're always in the public eye with lots of media requests, whether it's us taking them ourselves or passing them along to the designated person that should be speaking on behalf of the situation. So on the slide specifically, I've just outlined some of the specific things in 2023 that were highlighted, and obviously lots of conversations and work that has been done between the District of Tofino and the Chamber around the wastewater treatment project, communicating to our business community, pay parking, the Highway 4 closure, water restrictions, transit specifically, as you mentioned, but just transportation overall. Lots of aspects of transportation, housing, foreign workers. We do our members' lunches, which is a great way to get information out to our community businesses. Our mayor's breakfasts have been wonderful, and we look forward to continuing those. Business after 5, member discounts, and then our paper disposal. So lots of different business support aspects that have been done and that we will be continuing to do. The next one is our business promotion and retention. So again, there's 5 areas specifically outlined for the agreement. The first one is to develop and deliver activities, services, networking opportunities, which I think that that's sort of what we've outlined on the last slide and this slide of some of the specifics that we do. Another one is to develop and or distribute resources, services that support retention, attraction, expansion to groups, individuals located within or seeking to locate within the District of Tofino. Which that's also highlighted on the next slide. We support the development and implementation of programs to advertise and promote buying locally made products and services through mediums including print, digital, web, social media, etc., which is our Try Local Tofino on that list. There's a page right on the Chamber website. If you haven't been on the Chamber website recently, that's definitely something to take a look at, and we'll be looking to grow that over the next a little while. To have presence at relevant community events related to economic development and business promotion. And then the last one is to participate at the annual regional and local business trade shows and conventions. Specifically, the one that has been identified over the years was the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Summit, which the Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce did attend in 2023. The other things, again, just on our website, there's a lot of really amazing resources that I know our business community uses quite often, and then others looking to get information about the area. Our website directory is a great one, so every single member is listed there. It's a live sort of directory to our actual membership backend. So it's updated constantly. So it's the best place to sort of see who the current chamber members are and to get a good cross section of what businesses are in the area. We do our redirects, which are emails to all of our members. We do our newsletter, which anyone can sign up for. Workshops, one example in 2023 was there was a food safe workshop, which is a great resource for our local business community. The Try Local Tofino I mentioned, and then partnering with all of our other business partners in the community. So for Tofino Winter Nights, that was the District of Tofino and Tourism Tofino, and the Ambassador Program, which is additionally those same organizations, as well as the Raincoast Education Society. Two things that I just wanted to highlight that didn't happen in 2023, but that we're focused on for 2024 is the Business Retention and Expansion Program. So that was the one that would have been reported on last year for 2022, was the pilot project. And then we received funding, a significant grant to be able to continue that and do 2 rounds of continued interviews to really connect with our business community about what they're struggling with, what is the good, bad, and otherwise of doing business in the area. And so that will be 2 rounds. It'll be started this month, so this spring as well as this fall. So mostly in 2024, and then the reports will sort of come out the end of 2024 into 2025. And then our Business Excellence Awards has been an amazing event that really showcases our business community. And so that's a really important one for promotion and retention. And we're looking to do that at the end of 2024. So look for that. The third aspect is the community economic profile. And so really, that's a very specific item to develop and annually update and distribute the Tofino community profile. So it is a document that again lives on our website, so you can access it at any time. I have a copy here if anybody wants to take a look at it. But it's a 27-page PDF document, super easy to download and take a look at. And I just put on the slide there the contents. So those are the contents of the document of all the things that it highlights. To really give an idea of what doing business in the area is all about, and some resources for somebody sort of first looking. Then there's lots of resources, whether they're contacting us directly or the District of Tofino, depending on the situation. The last one is our business roundtables. I don't have anything really specific from 2023. What could have been some amazing roundtables definitely got taken over with highway closures and water restrictions. So I do have a little bit of details as far as just really wanting to, I think, from what I gather from the past and from this past 5-year agreement, and then I think for the next couple of years, is really just wanting, the open call, if there's anything that mayor and council staff are looking for feedback on, wanting to do a roundtable on, it's something that the chamber is going to be working on. Regardless if it's something from the district, we will be doing roundtables for sectors. That's something that I've found very valuable on the business side of things, to be able to connect with similar businesses and talk about some of the struggles and be working together, to save on costs. Shipping here is expensive. If we can be working together, we give value to ourselves as well as the whole community, and so looking to do that. But definitely any feedback. One example, we had a meeting about waste management and with the ACRD, and they were wanting to be able to access some of the more accommodator type businesses, and so was interested if we're doing a roundtable with those businesses, could they come and present? So it's a good example of something that we can kind of do 2 topics where maybe they're presenting to provide some information, but then we're also getting everyone in the same room and being able to get some feedback as well on anything, whether it's for the district or otherwise. Some of the specific to 2023, the roundtables did end up being a little bit more about, talking to regional partners, whether it was about water or the roads, so that we could be sharing accurate information, and a lot of just disseminating information, making sure that everyone had the correct information and that everyone was on the same page, and a lot of information gathering. This is my last slide. I just wanted to introduce you to our 2024-2025 board of directors listed here. So we had 2 outgoing board of directors, and we have 2 new board of directors this year. Historically, and definitely already myself, meeting with council and staff is definitely a priority, and I already have been talking about water and parking and lots of other topics for 2024. So I look forward to continuing to do that if anyone needs anything. We're also looking at, in past there has been board to council meetings. If that's something that council is interested in, it's definitely something that our board of directors would be interested in, to just make sure that we're having a chance to talk and just see what how we can work collaboratively together. This year, so 2024, as I mentioned, is the first of our 2 years with the same fee for service agreement. And so we're keen to continue working together and being able to spend the next 2 years to be able to update and evolve the agreement for future community needs, and really looking ahead, not just the 2 years or 5 years, but what does 10 years or further look like, and make sure that we're looking into the future. So yeah, thanks so much for your time, and just always welcome council and staff's input, feedback, anything. Give me a call or email. Duncan has my email, so I'll email you all, and you have my email contact information.
Super.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thanks so much. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Steer.
Just a quick one. Thank you and welcome to your new role. It's wonderful to have you in that position. And just on your presentation in terms of those, the roundtables for sectors and may even in terms of business retention and expansion, I think we had a brief conversation around some of those areas that historically we know tourism is our dominant economy, but we also have sectors historically that have played a crucial role. And I think of the marine service industry and specifically fisheries as well. And it might be an opportunity because the may not be the best organized in terms of industries in our area here, but certainly the types of supports that I think the change could provide for them would be extremely valuable. And the other area, of course, is in our trades and construction. And we know we have a booming industry in many ways, and would be another sector that I think in terms of those conversations with the chamber and that support would be a wonderful opportunity once again. So thank you for everything, and look forward to more in the future.
Thank you for that feedback. And one of the things that reminded me too is looking at sort of a unique aspect of roundtables, that instead of looking at businesses as their sectors, and so you could also take, if we wanted to be talking to all businesses with staff accommodations. So it doesn't matter actually what sector they're part of, but okay, we have a lot of information that we're wanting to communicate and get feedback on regarding housing. So maybe it's a staff accommodation roundtable that you're doing. And so just looking at them also, yeah, some of the unrepresented sectors, and whether they're chamber members or not, being able to really engage with them and get that feedback. Thank you.
Excellent. Council. Thank you very much. Thanks for all you do. It's great.
Thank you.
It's lovely to see you here. All right, moving on to 10.3 of water conservation bylaw. Rogers.
Can I ask for a 1 minute break? Because this could take a little bit of time and I just had way too much tea. So
okay, we'll do a 3 minute, 2 minute. Okay, we'll reconvene. Take it away, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you very much, Mayor Council. Tonight, for my only presentation, I'll be presenting a short PowerPoint on the water conservation plan and a number of associated bylaws. So over the last year, obviously we've been working on our water master plan. One of the outcomes of that plan was the conservation plan. In order to implement that plan, we need to undertake some bylaw amendments to get us ready for the summer of 2024. Primarily we'll be looking at 4 bylaws today: the conservation bylaw, two enforcement bylaws, and the business license bylaw. In terms of the conservation bylaw, we're amending the bylaw to go from 4 to 3 stages. We've discussed this in our consultation periods and a little bit last year. The new stage aligns with how we understand our water system to operate and how it was designed. So in the sense that it's a flow-through system rather than a storage-based system, and we've amended these, or proposing to amend these stages to reflect that system. It's responsive to conditions. So in this case, it'll be a staff initiated stage 1 rather than an automatic stage 1. And again, that reflects that water system design. communications piece, stage one is largely a communications exercise, and communications is actually at the heart of what we do in the water conservation realm. And so we'll be spending extra attention there. As a part of that will be a requirement for conservation education materials in all of our tourism-based businesses. And then finally, we're looking to make sure that the bylaw works for our day-to-day living for our residents. So permitting such things as outdoor showers, foot washes, wetsuit washing, and rinsing of boat motors under certain conditions. The MTI and bylaws have both proposed to be increase our fines as you go through the stages. It's intended to become more punitive and adding in some new offenses based on the education material. So ensuring that people are showcasing our conservation stages at the front of the office or in an accommodation unit. Finally, the business license bylaw basically is that education piece. So including in the requirement to have a business license in certain areas such as short-term rentals, restaurants and retail, that education material on websites, at front counters, within units and offices. In terms of engagement, we had 2 stakeholder roundtables where we generated a fair amount of suggestions and conversation. And then this process is going to be ongoing year after year, essentially through the stage 1 communications, but likely some small outreach as well throughout the year. And that is it for my very short PowerPoint. I look forward to any questions.
Super, thank you, Mr. Rogers. All right, let's do a round of questions if there are any. Start at that end of the table and we'll work this way.
With regard to enforcement, traditionally we've been bylaw by complaint. Are we tending to be more proactive when it comes to water?
Great question. I haven't had that conversation yet with Ms. Vermont and her team yet in terms of what our bylaw priorities are. But it's my assumption that, stage 1, again, is basically educational. Stage 2 is starting to get a little bit more serious, and that might be the door knocks, going out and meeting people where they're using water. And then stage 3 is probably significant enforcement. And I think that was part of the reason for increasing those fines, to make sure that, when we have these conversations at stage 2, that this is important. At stage 3, we can say we've already had that conversation and we're not waiting to the very last moment. So that would be my intent. We would have the conversation about priorities yet.
Through the chair, council has the opportunity annually to set bylaw priorities for the upcoming season. This being the first year with a new bylaw, we might be more education focused, but certainly if that wants to be an enforcement priority going forward, we can do that.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Steer.
Great, thank you, and Councillor McMaster. That was in terms of my understanding that as a new bylaw with enforcement was one of the questions that I had. Understanding that education and engagement is first and foremost how we like to proceed in these areas rather than the stick to begin with. I thought we were going to have a more engaged conversation around the water conservation program in general. So I got 17 pages here, but we'll do that later. Thank you. I think you answered the question fair enough that we'll, and we'll have the opportunity to talk about in terms of our bylaw priorities. But I think education and engagement, especially this with the new bylaw out there, will be critical for success. So thanks.
To the chair, my question's about the education and communication materials. Will we have standardized messaging that we provide to all businesses so that it's consistent?
Yes, I believe what we're doing is we're providing that for a website as well as a written a write-up that people can use if they choose. I may defer to Manager of Legislative Services to provide a more fulsome explanation.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. Thank you for the question. We're working very closely with Tourism Tofino to provide visitor-friendly messaging that folks may want to use in their businesses, but the bylaw does not require our messaging specifically. They may use the messaging that they see fit for their business. But we're working with Tourism Tofino again to provide multiple different iterations of messaging that can go into multiple different places that are mandatory.
Thank you.
Super, thank you. Go to the side, anybody? Councillor Zara?
Yeah, through the chair, thanks. I was happy to see the community interest reflected in the ability for food garden watering. I think that was really important to people last year. And people really appreciate that, not having to let all their hard work go away.
Super. Sloan, anything? No? I feel so pedantic with my question, honestly, but I just noticed I couldn't find a solid definition for overwatering. So that was my thing. If it's gonna be in there and we're gonna enforce it, then I think probably needs a definition, but that's
When your plants start to wilt.
overwatering. Yeah, that's, it's something, it's just something. It was in there, so. Great questions. I think it's a great questions about enforcement priorities and how that's gonna work with council's priorities, or if we even need to make that a priority, perhaps it can be, enmeshed right in the stages. Be probably the best way to go, but other than that, I have no questions. Are there comments from council? For now?
On the water conservation program?
Thanks for all the work on this. I think it's excellent. I think it's going to turn out really well. So if there's no more, last call for comments and questions from Mr. Rogers before we read the recommendations. Okay, I see none. Would a councillor like to offer to read the recommendations for us?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I move that the District of Tofino Water Conservation Plan dated March 2024 attached as Appendix 1 to the Water Conservation Bylaw Amendments report dated April 9th, 2024 be received, and that District of Tofino Water Use and Conservation Amendment Bylaw number 122401/2024 attached as Appendix 2 to the Water Conservation Bylaw Amendments report dated April 9th, 2024 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and that District of Tofino Municipal Ticket Information System Amendment Bylaw number 108809/2024 attached as Appendix 3 to the Water Conservation Bylaw Amendments report dated April 9th, 2024 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and that District of Tofino Bylaw Notice Enforcement and Dispute Adjudication System Amendment Bylaw number 1107/2024 attached as Appendix 4 to the Water Conservation Bylaw Amendments report dated April 9th, 2024 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and that District of Tofino Business License Regulation Bylaw Amendment number 123901/2024 attached as Appendix 5 to the Water Conservation Bylaw Amendments report dated April 9th, 2024 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time.
Second.
Councillor McMaster, final chance for comments from council. Would we call a question? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Right. We have a verbal report, 10.4 parking amendments.
Thank you, Mayor Watt. I don't have a presentation today, but I can speak to it broadly. We're looking to amend our parking bylaw to address some of the issues that we faced last year in 2023 as the downtown program was quite new. There's three main items that we're looking to change. One is expanding the downtown parking season by a couple of weeks. The second one is increasing the downtown and lot rates by 25%. And finally, is adding the 17 new spaces at the end of Mackenzie Beach Road to the parking plan. All of those will help increase our revenue projections over the next 3 years. Other than that, there's no changes to the parking plan or the parking program from last year.
Excellent, thank you. All right, questions from Mr. Rogers from council? Before we can move on, would somebody like to read the motion?
I'll read that the Traffic and Parking Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 1091-09/2024 attached as Appendix 1 to the Parking Amendments report dated April 9, 2024 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time. I see it's all in one motion, or are we separating the two out here? And that District of Tofino Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 1271-09/2024 attached as Appendix 2 of the Downtown Paid Parking Program report dated April 9, 2024 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time.
Seconded by Councillor Thomas. Further comment from council? All in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't voting in favor there.
Oh, you're not voting then?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you saw your hand up. Oh, sorry. Well, we'll go back. All in favor, all opposed. Any opposed? Opposed? Okay. One opposed. Motion's carried. Thank you. 10.5 water meter replacement.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Law. The Mackenzie Beach Road project started. We had our first site meetings this week, and construction will start Monday. As part of that project, we would like to replace install a large water meter for one of the resorts at the end of that road. That resort was built in the 1980s. It has 5 private or 5 meters, domestic size meters on the property. What we'd like to do is take the opportunity as we bring the road up to replace those 5 meters with one proper meter that will service the whole property. We're going to ensure that that meter is set up to be able to accommodate a larger water main if at such time in the future we increase the size of that water main. And so we're looking for council's confirmation that we can proceed with this project with an early budget approval. The estimated cost of that project at this time is $120,000 that would be funded from the capital infrastructure levy for water.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, round of questions from council. Questions from council? Comments from council? Seeing none, would somebody
I'll
like to?
move that the water meter replacement 400 Mackenzie Beach Road project be included in the 2024-2028 financial plan, and that the project be funded from the capital and infrastructure levy water in the amount of $120,000, and that the project receives early budget approval for 2024.
Second. Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any further comment from council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 10.6, we have the Chief Administrative Officer Performance Review Policy. Mr. McCall.
Thank you, Mayor Law. Good evening, council. All good. Tonight, I'll be presenting the CAO Performance Review Policy for council. So a bit of background on this policy, or policies in general. The district has several policies, internal policies to establish standards and procedures for municipal work. This policy in particular sets a framework for how the CAO should be reviewed on an annual basis. And the intent of is to establish clear guidelines to ensure an effective working relationship between council and the CAO. The current policy was adopted in 2011. And during a recent review, it was found to be outdated and required to be repealed. So the process on developing this new policy and its results, a standing committee was formed, guided by a terms of reference. This policy was developed and advised by the District of Tofino's Human Resources Manager and guided by templates from the Canadian Association of Municipality Administrators. It also includes a mandate letter and performance review template to support each annual review. So next steps for this policy. The policy is in front of council tonight for adoption. Prior to adoption, council must repeal the old policy. And the 2023 performance of the CAO review will actually commence upon adoption of tonight's policy. And that 2024 review will actually be completed prior to the September 15th deadline. Policy is then set to be reviewed every 3 years. And with that, I have a recommendation in front of council and happy to take council's questions.
Excellent. So I'm going to go for a round of questions for Mr. McCall from council. Comments from council?
Just a quick one, just to thank our human resources for the work on this. It was a lot of guidance that was needed. And thank you very much for that.
Yeah, it's a long process. Thanks. And thanks to the committee too for if there are no other comments, then would somebody like to read the recommendation before us?
Read it.
I move that the CAO performance evaluation policy dated October 10th, 2011 be repealed. And that the CAO performance review policy dated April 9th, 2024 be adopted.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Steer. Any further comments from council before we call the question? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. We have a 10.7 Recreation Reserve Fund Amendment Bylaw. Do you have, did you want to speak to this or just very briefly?
Thank you through the chair. No formal presentation, but just a minor clerical error on the amendments in there, just a minor typo that we wanted to correct. Sure.
So this is a housekeeping amendment. With that being said, would somebody like to remove the?
I'll move that the District of Tofino Recreation Reserve Fund Amendment Bylaw number 1341-01/2024 be introduced and read first, second, and third time.
By Councillor Thomas. Any further comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion carried. Thank you. All right, we have 10.8. We have a development variance permit for 645 Vincente Place. Scrabble?
To have a very brief presentation tonight. Okay, so I'm going to be presenting the development variance permit for 645 Vincente Place. The property is located up in the top of the Lone Cone residential area. It is zoned in the R2 two-family residential district. It is within the village land use designation and within the steep slopes DPA. Noted that the exemption for the DPA does apply, given that it's only triggered at the time of subdivision. So it's outside of all other DPAs. The proposal includes 3 variance requests. So the one being for the 3rd story, the second being for the height allowance, and then the 3rd being parking within the front yard setback. Some evaluation highlights being that these variances will reduce the need for significant land alterations. For those who are familiar with that lot, it is quite a steep topography, and so there's a significant boulder sort of impeding a lot of the development ability of that lot. So the property owners have undergone some serious design alterations and exercises to come up with the plan that they've had, the 3-story plan that they've developed. And so this will also accommodate home occupation and then allow for off-street parking in and above what would generally be permitted within that front yard setback. There was a consultation, public notification that was distributed to 60 meter radius, of the subject property. And in response, as of today, there was only 1 letter of opposition and no letters of, 1 letter of support. That's an important distinction. 0 letters of opposition. So the recommendation today in light of it all is to approve the variances as presented, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Super, thank you very much. It's a very difficult lot to work with, so.
Yes, and having a lot of, I've been sort of in close communications with the property owners from the very beginning. So it's been a very interesting evolution of design. And so I think where they've landed, it's been a long process, but seems to align in a lot of ways.
Okay, well, let's do a round of questions. Questions? Comments from council? Yes, go ahead.
I reached out to a couple of the neighbors and the neighbors seemed very supportive of this, and they actually would prefer a variance over years of blasting.
Yeah, that's right. I actually, yeah, thanks for that. Yeah. Yeah, site adaptive. So I think that's what we're seeing here. So I think that's why we have variance, development variance. Seeing no further questions or comments, then I think looking for a councillor to offer to. Councillor Anderson, read the motion.
Turn that moving. Recommendation, move that development permit for variance permit number 0124 development permit 0124 attached as appendix 1 to the report titled DVP 645 Vincente Place, building height and third story dated April 9th, 2024. To vary District of Tofino zoning bylaw number 770, 1997 for lot 9, District Lot 115, Clackwood District Plan, BIP 66236, PID 003963930 be issued as follows. A, vary part 9.5 of the District of Tofino zoning bylaw number 770, 1997 to increase the maximum building height to 11.9 meters, 39 feet, to accommodate the development in substantial conformance with the proposed plan attached as Exhibit A to DVP 0124. B, vary part 9.5 of District of Tofino zoning bylaw number 770, 1997 to permit a third story on a principal building within R2 zone in substantial conformance with the proposed plan attached as Exhibit A to DVP 0124. And C, vary part 6.7 of District of Tofino zoning bylaw number 770, 1997 to permit parking within the front yard setback as prevented on the proposed site plan attached as Exhibit A to DVP 0124.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor McMaster. Any further comments from council?
Yeah, when the motion takes longer to read than the presentation.
We could have lengthened it.
We could.
You too. Great. If there are no more comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Before we move on, Ms. Kravitz, I understand this is your last presentation.
It is.
It's bittersweet. You know what? I just would say you've been a wonderful asset, and you will be a wonderful asset in your next endeavor. And we wish you the best, and we thank you for all the work you've done.
It's been an honor and pleasure, so thank you all.
Thanks, Rick. Kevin.
If I can, I will properly pronounce your name for last time. So thanks, Ms. Kriba.
Sorry, I thought it was opposite. I said turnabout. There you go. Well, we never have to do that again.
Very good. That was really fun.
But I thought I was going to say Kriba, but then I thought, no, I thought you told me not to. Anyway, thanks so much. Thanks so much. Okay, 10.9 zoning amendments. We have a multifamily residential complex in the affordable residential comprehensive development zone. So Mr. Later.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. I'll wait until the presentation comes up. Thank you very much. As the title slide alludes to, I'm going to present on a zoning amendment for a quadplex proposal in the AR1 zone. This is a bit of a fun one here. So some background, the application was received December 13th, 2023. The purpose of the amendment is to facilitate the development of 2 4-unit multifamily dwellings on lots 3 and 4 of the AR1 zone, which is in the headwaters area. Staff are requesting permission to proceed with further review. And one thing about process that I'd like to note about moving forward is that due to recent changes to the Local Government Act, public hearings are prohibited on bylaw amendments that contain residential components. So if council decides to move forward with this application, there will be no public hearing, though public notification in line with LGA requirements and district requirements will still occur prior to first reading. Here's a little bit of a location context slide. Here on the left is the boundary of the AR1 zone relative to the downtown area. And on the right, it is a zoom in of the zone where you can see the 5 existing lots. The subject lots are highlighted there, which are lots 3 and 4. So before I get into the analysis portion of the presentation, I wanted to provide a bit of context on the circumstances that led to this zoning amendment. Now, as mentioned, the subject properties are located in the AR1 zone, which was established in 2020 to facilitate an 84-unit affordable residential neighborhood to be developed by the THC according to a specific density and form across 5 lots that included 2 high-density apartment-style buildings on lots 1 and 2, now known as Headwaters North and South, as well as duplexes with secondary suites on the remaining 3 lots. Now, in order to ensure this density and form of this particular development concept was adhered to, fairly restrictive zoning regulations were developed, which limited density and lot size according to housing type. So, for example, a maximum of 72 dwelling units in the form of what we call multifamily dwellings could be developed only on a lot with a minimum size of 3,000 square meters. Now, shortly after the adoption of this zone, the THC developed a duplex design with secondary suites that aligned with the density and lot size requirements of the zone, with the intent to build these on lots 3 and 4 and sell them as attainable housing units. As you likely already know, there was a purchase lottery process for these duplexes, though there were insufficient numbers of applicants that were able to qualify for mortgages. And for this reason, THC decided to essentially go back to the drawing board and revise the duplex plans to what we see now as the 4-plex or quadplex design, with the idea to reduce unit costs and increase the pool of eligible candidates. So I just want to point out, even though there was no change in the number of dwelling units from the duplex design with the 2 secondary suites to this 4-plex design, this change in design meant that there was a change in housing typology. So under our zoning bylaw, a dwelling with 4 principal units, it's considered a multifamily dwelling. And as a result of the typology change, this meant that the revised design no longer complied with the density and minimum lot size requirements of the AR1 zone, and thus triggered the requirement for the zoning amendment. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of key takeaways from this presentation, because I think it can get easy to get bogged down in the details of this amendment, because there are sort of several specific text amendments that are required. But essentially, the purpose of the amendment is fairly simple, and that is to allow the development of 2 multifamily dwellings with 4 permissible dwelling units each on lots 3 and 4 instead of the previous 2 duplexes with 2 secondary suites. There's the same number of units, but it's a different housing form or type. As I mentioned, I guess the perceived complexity lies in the number of text amendments that will be required to facilitate this new design. And maybe just a note on zoning design, I think it's more of an art than a science. There are many ways to design a zone to achieve the desired objectives. But there are sort of standards and best practices. And I think the intent with these proposed specific text amendments are generally to not only facilitate the proposed quadplex design, but also enable greater flexibility to avoid future minor zoning amendments of this nature moving forward. So just for interest's sake, I added a slide that shows a side-by-side comparison between the previous duplex design on the left with the proposed revised 4-plex design. The main difference is, as you can see, actually it's the exact same building footprint, but the main difference is the height and the perceived sense of scale and massing. On the left, it's 3 stories. The duplexes took up the upper 2 floors with the secondary suites on the bottom floors. And on the right, there are 4 principal dwelling units. So policy review, because the quadplex design still aligns with the general use and intent of the AR1 zone, there are minimal differences in how it aligns with the relevant policies compared to the duplex design. But generally speaking, there's good alignment with the vision action plan, the OCP, the housing needs report, and the land use demand study, which support affordable compact housing. The subject property is also located within the future homes designation of the OCP, which encourages higher density housing. There's general alignment with the multimodal transportation plan due to the relative proximity of the property to the downtown area and services via walking or active transportation. And there's also some secured bike parking included in a accessory building on site. So here's an outline of the required zoning changes. As mentioned, the main objectives of the amendment are to facilitate the development of the fourplex design on lots 3 and 4, while both maintaining a maximum density of 84 units across the zone and enabling greater flexibility of housing mix to avoid future minor amendments. To achieve this, generally speaking, staff propose to decouple the lot size, density maximums, and siting or setback requirements from the housing typology, and instead regulate these requirements on a per lot basis, in addition to establishing a maximum zone density of 84 units regardless of housing type. I also wanted to note that the proposed changes would also extend to lot 5 to enable that to have development permissions for multi-unit dwelling. And this is the lot that was recently sold by the THC to raise funds for development of lots 3 and 4. Some additional really minor tweaks are being proposed by staff as well, just to improve the legibility and interpretation of the zone. And this includes specific definitions of front lot line, rear lot line, side lot line for lot 4, because this particular lot is a little bit difficult to interpret which lot line is which. So getting into more of a site-specific analysis from a form and characters perspective, staff don't have any concerns. And in fact, the revised design would have a reduced sense of massing due to the change from 3 floors to 2. From a housing perspective, the proposal is intended to better respond to the specific housing needs of the community by creating smaller principal dwelling units. In conversations with the THC leading up to this presentation, a specific tenure type has not been finalized. Though the THC have indicated that the units may be used as rental units for essential workers and include a mix of market and non-market units. That said, should the tenure move to an ownership style, should the units be sold instead of being rented out, future discussions will occur with the THC to identify an appropriate mechanism such as a housing agreement to ensure that the units remain affordable and resident restricted. From a traffic access and parking perspective, staff don't have any concerns. A total of 4 stalls per quadplex are proposed, which does exceed the minimum required stalls under the zoning bylaw by 1 stall. The current requirement is 3. On lot 3, parking is provided in the front setback, which is prohibited under the zoning bylaw. However, there was a variance for parking in the front yard setback in 2022 for the duplex design, largely due to the odd shape of the lot and the rocky terrain. But staff believe that as the site layout is not changing between the duplex design and this one, this variance should still be valid. From a servicing perspective, the density is not changing, so staff do not anticipate any servicing implications, though should the application be granted permission to proceed, further analysis will be conducted by our Public Works and Engineering Department. And finally, from an environmental perspective, though a certain amount of vegetation removal will be necessary to facilitate the development, environmental impacts are expected to be minimal. A development permit was recently issued to authorize the installation of hydro services to service lots 3, 4, and 5. In addition to allowing site preparations for lots 3 and 4 for the residential development. And as part of this development permit, there was a condition to adhere to a construction environmental management plan, which outlines mitigation measures such as vegetation removal timing, erosion and sediment control measures, and invasive species management. So next steps, if council decides to proceed, staff will embark on an internal and external referrals process, send out notifications related to the application in line with LGA and district bylaw requirements. Again, no public hearing would be carried out due to recent changes of the LGA. And that's basically it. This brings me to the recommendation, which is to proceed with further review.
Excellent, Mr. Later. Thank you. Questions for council, from council? Yes.
Or well, I've got comments actually.
You can go right to comments. I think we're probably fine.
I just had, through the chair, just a bit of feedback on the report they found. You know, relevant, but also concerning, just given the environmental impacts report from Courtney, the company I believe came from. You know, I understand there's already like significant disturbance on the site. There is, however, a significant cedar tree that is not second growth. That was not mentioned in the report. And there are species present that were listed as moderate to low occurrence. And then they also said the presence of mule deer, which we know we don't have here. So I would just be concerned that maybe there was not a sufficient environmental impact assessment on the sites. I've seen 2 types of owls in trees on lot 4. And I would really like to make sure that there's a stand of dead cedars in there. Really like to make sure there's no pygmy owl nest in those.
Could maybe you could perhaps respond to those concerns?
Yeah, I think, you know, as a planner, I'm not an environmental expert. And I think we're often in the position where we rely on the expertise of the professionals that submit the reports. I think honestly, I don't really know what else to add other than, you know, there are conditions in place to include mitigation measures for environmental impacts. Maybe I'll just leave it there.
Maybe just a comment. Maybe I'll just weigh in here from the chair. No, this particular amendment that these amendments we're looking at wouldn't actually change anything that's previously been adopted. So I'm not sure if this actually amendment would have much of a change on any of the previously adopted environment zoning at all. So maybe that's something.
This is just a comment based on, you know, staff moving forward.
Gotcha.
Looking at the proposal and just comment information.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Good. Noted. Noted. Any comments from council? Okay. Would somebody like to read the motion?
I'll move that staff be granted permission to proceed to prepare a draft zoning amendment bylaw to facilitate the development of quadruplex multifamily dwellings in the AR1 zone.
Second by Councillor Steer. Okay, any further comments from council? All in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, last but not least, our zoning amendments. 10.10, we have the third reading, 521 Cyper Crescent. Mr. Thank.
Mayor, council, I'll try to do this one pretty quickly. I'm sure we've seen this one a little bit before. This is a presentation related to the reports considering third reading for the rezoning at 521 Cyper Crescent. So just a brief background where we're at today. The application was received on May 30th, 2022, moved through permission to proceed later that year, got to first reading in early 2023, second reading almost a year later in early 2024, and then we held a public hearing on March 12th of this year that I believe all council was present. The property in question, council has seen this one a couple times, right on the corner of Cyper and Crescent and Campbell Streets. There's currently a single family home with a suite there. I believe there's a vacation rental operation as well as a long-term tenant currently in occupancy in on property. This is the proposal, the current proposal that staff have from the applicants. This is a slightly refined version from what was initially presented at permission to proceed in first reading, I believe. The applicant is still looking at a 3-story building, but they've tried to include a little bit of a slope in the actual in the roof line, while maintaining some flat space along the roof as well to serve as common space for the residents of the building. Another quick look, I just wanted to show this is the sort of the footprint of the building. This would be the ground floor. There's currently 3 proposed commercial retail units as well as storage and mechanical on the ground floor. The upper 2 floors would be residential units up to 25 potentially, depending on the mix of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom suites. Touching on the public hearing, there were 8 written submissions received by staff. 2 were in favor, 6 were opposed. Of those ones opposed, the primary concerns were the scale of development, impacts to traffic, and the overall loss of trees. However, many of those authors of the letters, of the opposed letters, noted that they were not opposed to development on the lot. They were just had a little bit of concern about the scale of what was being proposed. There were 2 members of the public that spoke at the hearing. Neither were directly opposed or in favor, but mostly raising concerns about the overall loss of trees, as well as the need for an electric vehicle charging station and car share parking. As per the Local Government Act, summary of the public hearing must be received by council and recorded as a public record. So I believe that's the second recommendation as part of it. There's also 2 changes that were required to the proposed amendment bylaw. These are largely clerical changes, mostly just kind of missed by staff, unfortunately, during consideration of second reading. The first would be to alter some of the language in another part of the bylaw where we basically prohibit the sale and manufacturing, processing of cannabis anywhere in the District of Tofino. We're going to change that language a little bit. That says just to ensure that it stays in there, but to clarify it to say that except where permitted in a particular zone, cannabis retail sale, processing, and manufacturing is prohibited in the District of Tofino. Those kinds of clauses are not always necessary within a zoning bylaw. Typically, if something isn't explicitly permitted in a zone, it is then not permitted. However, having that clear language can be helpful, as sometimes with changing provincial legislation, other things like that around cannabis, we're looking at a bit of a moving target. So it's nice to just have that statement in there just to make sure that it's quite clear and easy for us to enforce. And then Schedule A, which is the actual zone that we're considering, initially indicated that no loading space would be required. That's not true. The applicants have added a loading space, and so we are making that available there. The other thing that has been changed is that because this is a through lot, we actually have 2 front yards. So we want to ensure that we have parking within the front yard, which is typically considered a rear yard as it backs onto Mountain Lake. So we wanted to address that prior to moving forward with the bylaw so that we wouldn't have to come back with a variance prior to potential development permit construction. The development covenant is really kind of the last thing that we're looking at here as staff with regards to this zoning amendment should it be continue to proceed. There's going to be a few specific conditions that we require of the developer in order for them to move forward. The first one, and a major one, would be the consideration for form and character. We want to ensure that whatever is built does mimic what was shown to council. It doesn't change design dramatically or have all sorts of different amounts of of either residential or commercial units, or have a major shift in form and character. So whatever is approved by council through rezoning will be very close to what is constructed. We'll also have a requirement for sprinklers. My understanding is the building code should require a building like this to be sprinklered anyways. However, we want to make sure that that happens in the strange event that for whatever reason, BC building code does not require that. We also would like to, through this covenant, have a little note in there that acknowledges the district's ability to refuse a building permit due to lack of water. This isn't something that we do all the time, as typically covenants should require somebody to do something or prohibit them from doing something. They're not necessarily to be used as notice boards. However, because we have this development covenant coming forward already, it does make sense to add that in there, just as a gentle reminder to both the applicant, the wider community, as well as staff and council here, that we do have that authority should we need to exercise it. And then the final part of the development covenant will be the requirement at a later date for a restrictive covenant, probably to be formulated at building permit, that will ensure that either at least 2 of the proposed residential units will be sold or rented for below market rates in line with established Housing Corporation policies, or that the residential units as a whole will not be stratified. This was presented to council at second reading as essentially the CAC offered by the applicants. Due to their uncertainty in financing, they weren't sure if they were going to look to potentially stratify all or some of the residential units, or be able to keep them all as rental. So our next steps would be to prepare and execute the development covenant, and then staff would bring the bylaw back for consideration of adoption should it continue to be supported by council today. That's the end. I'll leave that recommendation up there. I just want to make one note that the second recommendation on there reads that third reading of District of zoning amendment bylaw, etc. And the report, there was another clerical error that says that second reading. So we are considering a third reading here. That was a typo. So apologize for that. Yeah, leave those up there. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to speak to them.
Super, thank you, Mr. Thick. Questions from council? Questions? Councilor Henderson.
But in this report, I didn't see any reference to a restaurant use. Has that been withdrawn from the commercial aspect of it?
Thanks for the question, the chair. No, the restaurant is still included in the commercial aspect of it. Typically with first and second reports to council, they're a little bit more robust, a little bit longer, and kind of go into a little bit more policy. This third reading report is a little bit light because council has already kind of seen that information twice already. The actual bylaw, though, still includes permission for a restaurant.
Councilor Sloman, then.
I was wondering, with regards to the restaurant, could we put a covenant in there that you couldn't have a restaurant use?
Yeah, again, thanks for the question. Through the chair, I wouldn't recommend doing that if a restaurant use is not something that council is interested in supporting. My recommendation would be that we just change the bylaw. There's not really much point in allowing something that's only bylaw than trying to have a covenant that restricts it. It would be probably better process wise and from a legal perspective to simply just not allow that permission.
My question was in regards to the change of the form of the roof to reflect the concerns that were voiced about appearances and fitting into the location. Does that really negatively affect the outdoor space, the common area up top? Or is it still?
Through the chair, start by saying that design is generally fairly subjective. So when I say, is it negatively impacting it or not, it's a little bit hard to judge. My understanding is that the outdoor space actually hasn't been reduced by very much, even with a completely flat roof, which was kind of the initial design proposal. The shared outdoor space was still restricted by kind of fences. So it wasn't like the entire roof was going to be that shared outdoor space. So my understanding with this design change is that they've tried to respond to a few of council's comments from earlier in the process while still maintaining as much, I believe almost as much as the initial design had for it was kind of a common area on top.
Thank you.
Comments from council? Comments from council? Council? Just on.
Well, reading all these letters, I'm still really uncomfortable with this development out. I just feel like it's gonna have a quite a negative impact on the neighborhood behind there, especially if a restaurant is permitted with the traffic.
You know, we all need housing. My comment is, I know we need housing and that's really driving this, certainly. And I think I've had comments from the beginning that mass, form and character, and at the last meeting, I think I had some pretty significant comments about the restaurant. So I haven't actually seen much change since the beginning personally, except the sloping of the roof and the addition of loading zone. So that's my I think I've been pretty consistent and I haven't seen much change myself. So that's my comment. Councilor Sawyer.
I believe I remember hearing the last at the last reading that there isn't an intended immediate restaurant use. They're just seeking that ability for potential future use down the road or for value as resale. Am I remembering that correctly?
That I believe you're probably correct.
So just because there's the zoning for that, and they have, you know, add the changes, the floating bay doesn't mean that there is for sure going to be a restaurant from there. If this was approved, they've said that that's not the intent. You remember? Sorry.
No, I do remember those comments. Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
You can make a comment if you like. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor Law. I would say typically in these situations, what we see is that the developer will simply offer the commercial retail units for lease, and whoever leases them then has the option to use them in whatever way they're zoned for. So it may be that to a certain extent the market sorts out what goes in there, and it may change over the course of time. More often than not, I'm not sure what the case is going to be in this particular situation, but should this building be constructed as proposed, what we tend to see with commercial lease units is that they're fairly bare. They're kind of, I can't remember what the official term is, but they call it kind of like gray skin. So it's basically just you know, kind of concrete floor and you know, drywall inside. And then whoever takes on the lease usually is responsible for installing whatever infrastructure they need to operate the business that they're operate out there. So certainly installing a commercial kitchen is a little bit installing a little bit different than installing just a point of sale service if you're a retail store. So there's obviously a consideration there. If somebody's installed all that infrastructure to operate a commercial kitchen, they would like to probably continue to do that. Though it doesn't necessarily mean, as you've indicated, that a restaurant will be located in there, but it doesn't also mean that there will. I guess the easiest way to think about it.
Yeah, just to maybe a response comment, since we're in the comment time, is that if we allow something in the zoning, highest and best use, the general rule of thumb is that it will eventually become that, and certainly would be able to stop it. So in that sense, Mr. Thick's right on the money. If it's zoned for a restaurant and built as a restaurant, it's probably going to be a restaurant, no matter what people say. So that would be my comment. Councillor Steer, is that fine?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, maybe I'll just comment now in terms of, you know, and the concerns that have been raised over the last, you know, for permission to proceed to where we are at now, and the public comments during the hearing. I will say, you know, in regards to the concerns that were raised, I certainly acknowledge those, but I had to do a risk analysis, a risk benefit analysis on this. And when I looked at the overall objective of what, you know, we state in our strategic plans around housing and the importance of this type of housing in the area that we most wanted, with those risk benefit analysis, I swayed towards the acceptance of this. Accepting that there are some concerns that we're not, but on the whole, when we're looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, it's roughly about 24 units of housing that we are looking at in the area where we most wanted, with the access to all the services. I have to support this for those main reasons.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none. Okay, thanks, Mr. Thick. All right, would somebody like to read the motion?
That the District of Tofino zoning amendment bylaw number 1326/2023 be read a third time as amended.
Seconded by Councillor Thomas, that's fine. Any further comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Second amendment, or second recommendation.
I move that the report attached as Appendix 3 containing the summary of representations respecting the District of Tofino zoning amendment bylaw number 1326/2023 that were made at the public hearing on March 12th, 2024 be received by council and maintained as a public record.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor McMaster. Any further comments? All in favor?
No comments.
All right, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Excellent. Moving along, we have no bylaws, business initiated by council members. We have the committee and external level reports. Councillor Steer.
Yeah, maybe I'll just comment today on after a long our BC, well, it's our transit service that's been initiated through the ACRD, as you've had updates over the years from myself regarding this service. It was very well received today, the opening of that service last week. This has not been without some hiccups along the way. That being said, the incredible collaborative work that has gone into bringing this transit service to the West Coast cannot be overstated from all the communities and the nations here, from the ACRD, from the Alberta Tla-o-qui-aht Health Network. The list goes on. It was recognized clearly that this service is very valuable, and just in the comments that have already been coming forward, this service has been utilized for some of those intended purposes, such as medical appointments that people were able to access through the transit service, getting to work in an affordable way, and also for, as was pointed out, to visit friends in our neighboring communities. So it can't be overstated how important this is, and I was just super happy that Mayor Law and myself were able to be there today for this ceremonial cutting of the ribbon. And this is something that will be generational. This isn't something that's going to, and it will expand, I hope, in time as we understand the service a little more. So this just was a great day out there, and thanks to everybody that made this possible.
Absolutely. Thanks, Councillor Steer. Any other committee external appointment verbal reports? Seeing none, then we're going on to question period. Mr. Shortall, do we have anybody signed up for question period?
Thank you, Mayor Law. I will make a call for the folks attending online and the folks in the gallery. If you wish to make a question, you can do so by either raising your hand virtually or in person, and you will have up to 2 minutes to speak. So I'll make a call going once, going twice, going 3 times. There are no questions at this time.
Thank you. Well, then would somebody like to move us into the closed session? For it.
I move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 91A, C, E, and L of the community charter to discuss matters relating to a personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality. C, labor relations or other employee relations. E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. L, discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures, and progress reports for the purposes of preparing an annual report under section 98, annual municipal report.
Second by Councillor Thomas. Any comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. We're moving into close. Thank you very much.